Formula One is about to hand half of the lap time to electric power, let computers decide when cars go into low drag mode, and shrink the cars back to something that actually looks raceable, which sounds fantastic, unless you're the team that built your entire advantage around rules that are about to disappear. Because in 2026, it's not just about who builds the best wings anymore, it's about who can master software, energy management, and a power unit that behaves nothing like what we have today. And that's why the fastest team in 2026 probably isn't the one most people are confidently predicting right now. For most of modern Formula One, performance has been decided by aerodynamics first and everything else second. Find the best floor, the best wings, control the airflow, and the lap time usually follows. 2026 changes that balance completely. Power units move to an almost 50-50 split between internal combustion and electric power. The MGUH disappears entirely, and suddenly teams have to generate huge amounts of electrical energy every single lap, and deploy it at exactly the right moments. On top of that, active aerodynamics replace DRS, meaning the car itself is constantly switching between high downforce corner mode and low drag straight line mode, whether the driver likes it or not. And while downforce is still important, the cars are lighter, shorter, and narrower, which means mechanical grip and stability under braking start to matter more again. So instead of just asking who has the best aero department, the real question becomes who can integrate engine, battery, software, and chassis into one system that actually works under race conditions. Which is great for innovation and terrible for anyone hoping that success in the current rules automatically carries over. When regulations change this much, there's always hope that the field gets closer together. And usually it does, but getting closer doesn't mean suddenly leading the championship, especially for teams that are still building their long-term foundations. For outfits like Haas and Williams, 2026 is more about survival and steady progress than outright performance breakthroughs. The new rules demand massive investment in energy systems, simulation tools, and software development. Areas where the biggest manufacturers still hold a clear advantage. Even with cost caps and more aerodynamic testing time, that kind of infrastructure doesn't appear overnight. The realistic goal for these teams isn't to suddenly fight at the front. It's to avoid being left behind while everyone else figures out a completely new technical language. This is where things get interesting, because 2026 doesn't just reward the teams with the best aerodynamic concepts. It rewards the teams that can manage complex projects across multiple departments without everything falling apart. Aston Martin is the obvious headline here. They now have Adrian Newey designing the car, Honda supplying the power unit, and facilities that finally match their ambition. On paper, that is exactly the kind of combination that should thrive under a clean sheet set of rules. But clean sheets also mean no shortcuts, no copied solutions, and no proven reference points. Even with the right people, brand new partnerships take time to become efficient, and efficiency is what wins championships under a cost cap. Then there's Audi, a full manufacturer entry, massive investment, and a leadership group pulled from championship-winning teams sounds impressive. But building a competitive Formula One operation from scratch has a long history of being harder than it looks. Integration is the real challenge. Power unit, chassis, software, operations, all of it has to function as a single system, not just a collection of expensive departments. So while these teams absolutely have the potential to be quick in 2026, they also have the most to get wrong. When people talk about who will be fastest in 2026, most predictions start and end with the same few names, and for good reason. Mercedes believes the new power unit rules play directly into their strengths. They've described the 2026 engine as a completely new architecture, and they're supplying multiple teams, which means more data, more mileage, and more chances to refine the system early. If their energy deployment and reliability are strong from the start, that alone could be worth tenths of a second per lap before aerodynamics even enter the conversation. Ferrari is taking a slightly different approach. New leadership on the chassis side, a power unit designed specifically around the new electrical demands, and a driver lineup built to give extremely detailed technical feedback. In theory, this is exactly the kind of reset Ferrari needs. In practice, Ferrari resets have not always gone exactly to plan. McLaren sits somewhere in between. They don't build their own engines, but their recent performance curve suggests an organization that finally knows how to turn development into lap time. Under stable leadership, and with strong technical processes already in place, a regulation reset could actually amplify that momentum rather than disrupt it, which leaves Red Bull in the most unusual position of all. For the first time in their history, they're not just building the car, they're building the engine too in partnership with Ford. New facilities, new personnel, and a power unit that has never raced before, all arriving at the same time as the biggest regulation change in decades. That's either the start of something very clever or a level of risk no reigning champion would normally choose. One part of the 2026 conversation doesn't get enough attention. With this much complexity in how the cars deploy energy, switch aerodynamic modes, and manage grip, drivers are no longer just reacting to the car, they're actively managing it. Energy harvesting, deployment timing, braking behavior, and corner exits are all tied into how much electrical power is available on the next straight. That means decision-making and adaptability become performance tools, not just driving technique. Drivers who are comfortable experimenting, learning new systems, and extracting performance from imperfect setups are likely to adapt faster in the opening phase of the new rules. And that's where certain names start to matter. Max Verstappen has already shown he can dominate through regulation changes, and his driving style naturally suits lighter, more agile cars that reward rotation and early throttle application. If anyone is likely to extract performance from a car that isn't perfect yet, it's him. Lando Norris represents a different kind of threat. He's deeply involved in simulator work, extremely sensitive to balance changes, and tends to adapt quickly when the car behavior shifts. Exactly the kind of profile that benefits when software and energy systems play a bigger role. Charles Leclerc thrives when front-end confidence and precision matter most, which could be an advantage in shorter, more responsive cars, assuming Ferrari actually gives him something stable enough to lean on. And then there are drivers who traditionally rely more on predictable, well-balanced platforms. In a year where nothing is predictable, that comfort can disappear very quickly, which means that even if the top teams arrive with similar performance, the gap between drivers could be larger than people expect, at least in the first half of the season. And early advantages under new rules have a habit of turning into long-term momentum. When you strip away the hype, the headlines, and the pre-season optimism, a few uncomfortable truths remain. The teams most likely to be fastest in 2026 are the ones that already understand hybrid systems, large-scale software integration, and complex energy deployment, not the ones who simply build the best aerodynamic packages. On that front, Mercedes looks frighteningly well positioned. They've spent over a decade refining hybrid power units. They're confident enough to supply multiple teams, and they've openly described the 2026 engine as a complete redesign built around electrical performance first. If that power unit is strong and reliable from the start, it gives every Mercedes-powered team a baseline advantage before development even begins. Ferrari has the resources to respond, and the technical reset gives them another opportunity to finally align their engine, chassis, and operations under a single vision. They absolutely could arrive with a competitive package, but recent history suggests consistency is still their biggest unknown. Aston Martin has the most intriguing long-term project. Neue, Honda, and modern facilities are exactly the ingredients needed for a regulation reset. The question isn't whether they can build something fast, it's whether they can do it immediately, or whether their real gains arrive a season or two later. And then there's Red Bull, building their first ever power unit while simultaneously adapting to new aerodynamics, new electrical systems, and major leadership changes is not the conservative option. It's ambitious, it's bold, and historically, it's not how dominant teams protect an advantage. But Red Bull also happens to employ the driver who has already shown he can win championships even when his car isn't the fastest, which means their ceiling might not be the highest on paper, but their floor could be higher than anyone else's when things don't go perfectly. So if the question is who is most likely to arrive with the fastest overall package, the safest answer probably points toward Mercedes and their customer teams. But if the question is who can turn chaos, complexity, and imperfect machinery into race wins, that answer becomes much less predictable, because 2026 won't just reward the best design, it will reward the teams and drivers who understand what these cars are actually asking for, before everyone else does. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and check out my other videos that are more than speed.